Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner, presented by the Hockey Writers. Today, we're going to be taking a look back at the U18 World Junior Championship tournament that just finished last weekend, and a few other prospect draft-related questions. I'm your host, Logan Horn, and today I'm joined by my co-hosts and fellow prospect analysts, Matthew Zator and Peter Baracchini. Peter, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah. On Sunday was a fantastic day for hockey, and even, the week leading up to it with the U18 tournaments, NHL playoffs. So it was a lot of jam-packed, nonstop action the whole entire way. So, biggest tournament for some of these players are over and done with. Some players are heading to the World. So it's still in, scouting season, but still looking forward to what's ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a great week for hockey. This tournament was a ton of fun, but also, the playoffs have been great. We got a Game 7 overtime, Boston, Florida. Did not go the way any of us expected. The Kraken upset the defending Stanley Cup champs in the Colorado Avalanche, which if you told someone that like 12 months ago, that would be insane. The Seattle Kraken, the team that is like bottom 5 in the league or whatever, they're going to make the playoffs and beat the team that wins the cup. No, not a chance. Anyway, it's been a good week to keep it short. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, if you're a betting person and you bet that the Boston Bruins would get kicked in the first round, probably making a lot of money right now. I don't know if anyone took that risk. But we should go back in time and do that. But I'm doing good. Like you said, hockey's been great for the last few days, and potential for all Canadian Stanley Cup final. I know that's far down the road. You never know. We still got 2 Canadian teams in here that pretty strong, and now that these 2 top dogs are out, could have a pretty clear path. Although there are some really strong teams still left. But really, really fun to be a hockey fan the last few days.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of fun going on. We're going to first start off the show just by talking about the U18s. It's one of the biggest calendar things on the draft calendar, as you could say, in April, May, at least. Lots of draft eligible prospects we get our first real good look at here. And it's just a ton of fun to cheer for your own country. So we're going to start off. So the tournament ended with Canada winning bronze over Slovakia and the Americans taking gold over Sweden. Both games ended in overtime, actually. So, Matt, I'm just going to come to you first. We're going to talk about all the top 4 teams here. What are your thoughts on Team USA winning gold? If you look at the stat sheet for the tournament, their top players are all over it. What are your thoughts on Team USA?
Well, we've talked about how powerful they've been and how powerful they were, and they didn't blow out anyone in the gold medal game or whatever. But these are 2 strong teams. Any of them could have won this. Like you said, it was done in overtime, so it could have been either way. But U.S. full value for that win, because their top players were their top players throughout the tournament, and it wasn't just them. Cole Eiserman was a lights out throughout. He's not even supposed to be drafted. He's not going to be drafted this year. He's going to be drafted next year. Guys like Gabe Perreault, we've talked about these guys, Ryan Leonard, Oliver Moore. They've all, Cole Hudson too. He was amazing throughout this tournament as well. So it's like all their top players came to play, and you probably could have thought they'd win gold right from the beginning when they started in this tournament. Although, like I said, Sweden was dominating too almost every game, and then dominated Canada as well again. So it was bound to be Sweden, US, and just ended up being that one of them won. Either of them could have done it. So after not winning gold in the last year, they rebounded quite well to do it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It did kind of feel inevitable in the build up to the tournament. Well, through the preliminary games, these teams were just clearly a step ahead of some of the other stuff. I do want to say, I think the US gets a little, and I do mean just a little too much credit for the stats that these players put up because their group was very easy.
True.
With Russia not being in this tournament, you look at their group and there are quite a few gimme games. And you look at the opposite group with Canada and Sweden in it, and it was quite a bit more challenging. I don't think that takes away any of the value of their win. I don't think it cheapens it in any way. Just I think it's something to note with these numbers. The reason that they're bordering on records is kind of partly due to that. Although lots of previous records are set that way too, so we can't just cherry pick which times it matters and doesn't. Anyway, Peter, what are your thoughts on Team USA winning gold here? They had the tournament's 3 top leading scorers, 2 other guys in the top 10 in scoring. What do you think of this team?
Sheer dominance. I mean, they like from the beginning of the tournament, we even like during the preview, we were talking about like Team USA and Team Sweden, how these were going to be the top 2 teams and how dominant that line of Leonard, Smith, and Perreault were going to be. And lo and behold, they're 1, 2, 3 in tournament scoring. I mean, actually unbelievable how they just managed to just destroy the competition no matter who was in their way, whether it was a top team or, team just fighting to stay in the group stage. They're just absolutely dominant. And I was expecting kind of a rematch from last year because of the fact that, again, Team USA is always deep. This is the tournament where they always seem to thrive on. Team Sweden, same thing. They have their group meshed together before these tournaments with some mini games and tournaments ahead of time. So I figured it was going to be another rematch. I would have expected maybe just a little bit more goal scoring, kind of like last year. I thought it would have been like one of those, who's going to score their way out of this kind of thing. Because last year was entertaining. That was just the bottom line of that. But the fact that, both sides weren't conceding much, especially in the dire minutes of the game. Obviously, Team USA press, they shouldn't have, or Sweden shouldn't have been in that situation where they should have just kept their foot on the gas. They looked a little bit tentative, a little bit, even that power play to start overtime, they didn't look very sharp, and US just clawed their way back. And, that was just a fantastic goal by Leonard to just seal the deal for Team USA.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thought I'm left with from this tournament is that somehow, I don't know how this is possible, but somehow the whole top line for the USA boosted their draft stock. Every single one of them. You would think if they all did, then maybe it'd be like, oh, well, maybe they all did well because one of them was excellent. And that's the guy we should think more highly of. But all of them, I guarantee there will be more and more people publicly and privately with teams and stuff talking about Will Smith in higher in the top 4, meaning maybe 4th overall, maybe competing with Leo Carlsson in some people's minds. Not for me, but I wouldn't be surprised. Ryan Leonard probably moving into top 10s everywhere, and Gabe Perreault definitely rising as well. I don't know how that's possible. It doesn't feel like that should be allowed, but they were all phenomenal, and you can't discount that. They were excellent. That top line, just at least one of them was dominant every night, basically. So if one of them was less dominant, it didn't matter. So that was a great team. I do want to mention Trey Augustine in net for the USA. 6 starts, he had 6 wins and a .934 save percentage, which was top 5 in the tournament, depending on if you count the people that played 10 minutes in one game or something. Got 8 saves on 8 shots. But so Trey Augustine was looking pretty good there as well. And I know you guys are big Trey fans, big Augustine fans. Anyway, we're gonna take a look at Sweden here, the silver medalists after winning gold last year. Sweden was probably the most surprisingly excellent team at this tournament. Maybe we shouldn't have been surprised, but they were definitely one of the most impressive teams as on a whole. Plenty of standout performers making a name for themselves in the draft with just a couple months left. So now that the tournament is over, who's impressed you the most from Sweden? Peter, I'll come to you first. So they had lots of guys that some people at home might not have heard their names more than once or twice that really showed out well. So who impressed you for Sweden?
See, the easy answer for me is going to be Otto Stenberg because, there's a lot of talk about him being inconsistent at the start of the season, started to work his way up and started to show more consistency, that two-way play, and even that offensive dominance that he had. But I'm still going to go with Tom Willander. I hate to be a homer on this, but I've been a big fan of his since the second half and watching more of his game and everything like that of what he has to offer. And he's just a very composed, very solid, steady two-way player where nothing seems to affect him. He shows no panic. And, I think one of the biggest critique I had of him was maybe like he gets pucks on net, but I would like to see a little bit more power in his shot. And, he got 3 goals in the tournament. So I think it's maybe in just the games that I saw where maybe he wasn't utilizing his shot more, but the edge work, the patience, the ability to jump into the play and find the open lanes and spots to put the puck in a great spot for his teammates. He was doing all that. And I know all the, attention was going to be on Sandin-Pellikka, but I really thought that, Willander was probably the second, maybe third best defender on the team because Theo Lindstein looked really good as well and improved his draft stock. But I was big on him before the tournament started, heading into the second half of this draft season. And even right now, I think he really cemented himself as a potential top 32 pick.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think Willander being on that second pairing was great for him because Sandin-Pellikka and Lindstein on the top pairing obviously just dominated every time they were on the ice. But he anchored that second pairing like no problem. And I saw a lot more offense from him than I was expecting, than I've seen in some of my other, when watching him against pro players, which is, that's fair. He's playing against under 18 players instead. But he's just a wicked skater and he's big and he's got a right shot. It feels like a first rounder. At least he's getting very close to it. Absolutely. He was really impressive. Matt, who impressed you most from Sweden at this year's U18s?
Yeah, I'm between two. Like Otto Stenberg, like I say, it's an easy one because he obviously led Sweden in scoring. Was insane in every game he played. And so I'm picking him and then Axel Sandin-Pellikka, who I've already mentioned. Like you said, dominant on the top pairing almost every game. Really solidified for me his spot in that top 10. I think he could, not top 10, but top 15 for sure. Could borderline around that 10-11 spot where the Canucks draft. The Canucks could pick him, which I wouldn't be surprised if they have their eye on this guy because, Canucks love their Swedish defensemen, love their Swedish forwards. Could even have an eye on Otto Stenberg. Because of this tournament, he's boosting his stock. Don't know where he was kind of around, but I know he was in I believe the top 20 around there. So yeah, those two were just amazing throughout the tournament. So if they weren't high on teams' draft boards, they're definitely high now. Yeah,
for sure. I'll just quickly mention one before we move on. Another player for Sweden that I was really impressed with was David Edstrom. He's in the Frölunda organization. And he's been a point per game in the J20 all year, and got into I think 11 SHL games with 4 points. He's a big 6'3" centerman. He's not the best skater, but he's effective enough. I don't know. I was just really, really impressed with his play. He centered the top line for Sweden in the gold medal game and looked excellent. He was borderline dominant against two-way play, not necessarily offense, skill moves, stuff like that. But the way that he contained that top American line for most of the game was really impressive to me. I think he's gonna rise up quite a bit too, maybe top 2 rounds somewhere, after being kind of a middle round pick guy before the tournament. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about Canada, who we've talked plenty about their awful first game of the prelims against Sweden. And then lost to Sweden again in the semifinals. Actually, I guess Sweden was the only team to beat Canada, because then in the bronze medal game against Slovakia, Canada won bronze. So Canada didn't have Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli this time around like they did last year, which we've spoken about a bit. So I'm wondering who you guys think was the biggest difference maker for Canada. If you have them, give me one in a good way and one in a bad way. Matt, without these like huge name prospects from this year, who do you think was a difference maker for Canada? They still won bronze. That's a success.
Yeah. Well, I said that Matthew Wood would lead Team Canada in scoring. He almost did. He has 2 points from Macklin Celebrini, 13 points in 7 games, 7 goals. Yeah, he's everyone knows I love Matthew Wood, so he just keeps doing it. He had a great game in bronze medal game. Goal and 3 assists. So and assisted on the game winner in overtime by Macklin Celebrini. So these are 2 line mates as well. So it's like Celebrini's not drafted. He's not going to be drafted until next year. Again, this is another guy that's not, and he led Canada in scoring. So those 2 for sure have been just so impressive. I think they keyed Team Canada in the bronze medal game, and take away those 2 Sweden games. They were really good and produced. So those 2 for sure, 2-headed monster for Team Canada that helped them win bronze.
Yeah, they were huge for Canada. And you know what? You could say when you predicted that Matt Wood would lead them in scoring, if someone is like, "Oh, you got that wrong," you'd be like, "Oh no, I meant goal scoring. Of course, I meant goals."
Yeah, I meant
goals.
You
can take the out there. Peter, what do you think? Without some of the biggest name Canadian prospects, who do you think was the biggest difference maker for Canada and still winning bronze?
Yeah, I mean, Celebrini was just absolutely dynamic and showed why he's, the potential top pick in that tournament. And, it was funny because he had that wicked game-winning goal, and then you have, I believe, Yzerman got a goal during that gold medal game as well, where I'm going to have to go back on that just to double check myself, but, not to be outshone or like outplayed by his, potential counterpart that he's going to be battling number 1 for. So he had that balance or that battle between the top 2 picks next season. But yeah, Celebrini was just absolutely dynamic, involved in the play every single time. And you know what, that I can't remember what game it was, but that shot along the goal line that just got up and over the goaltender. I think that was Slovakia. I don't want to say that for sure. Probably. Again, it was very early on in the tournament, and it was very reminiscent to that goal that Bedard scored against USA in the first game last year as well, on the goal line with that accuracy and precision. It was just absolutely phenomenal. So absolutely dynamic, great on both sides of the puck too. Great hands, just the overall package that you want in a number 1. And player that I was really disappointed with, I can pick a lot from Team Canada because there are a lot of players that disappointed, especially on defense. But I'm going to pick Andrew Crystal. I didn't quite see the dynamicism that we saw during the regular season from him. How he was able to utilize the speed a little bit more, wasn't quite into that or didn't quite display that as much. And I know skating has been an issue for him, but there are times where it's an asset. And this tournament, it just really wasn't there how he was able to, get that edge over opponents and break free. I did not see that at all.
Yeah, he was a bit of a disappointment for sure, Andrew Crystal. Definitely. I mean, I know you would have, Peter, but I had pretty high hopes for him as well here.
I did.
To be kind of an offensive catalyst for Canada, and he was all right. But he had his moments here and there. He had a really nice goal. Can't remember when. That might have been in the semis or quarters. But nothing exciting, nothing over the top really. For Canada, I'll say a difference maker. I'll say Callum Ritchie. Was excellent. I was really pleased with his tournament. We've talked all year about how he hasn't quite had the production that we hoped after. I think he led the tournament in scoring at the Hlinka Gretzky last year.
He did.
And we were all like, top 10 pick. And then it's been kind of middling production through the OHL this year. Great for sure. But in a draft class with so many high-end forwards, he has a lot of the tools, but if the points aren't there, maybe the ceiling is second line center, and that leads to you slipping a little bit. He had a good year overall, but this tournament showed that potential again. He definitely showed that he can play with skilled players like Celebrini and Wood on that top line.
Yeah.
Canada was kind of a one-line team for a lot of the tournament, to be fair, but that one line was excellent, and Cal Ritchie was a part of that. And actually, in a bad way, I'll go for a difference maker for Canada was Carson Bjarnason. Just did not have the tournament that he needed to have here. If he hadn't gone to this tournament, probably stays at about the same spot in the draft. But having such a rough go, I don't think it'll help him. Obviously, Canada's defense, as you mentioned, Peter, was subpar, to put it nicely. So you can't.
I think that is very nicely, but
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm doing my best. But also, if you look at the stats for both the goalies for Canada, you'd expect Bjarnason to do a little better than Gabriel Daigle, who isn't eligible until 2025 and is 16 years old. You'd kind of expect a little more from Bjarnason than a 16-year-old coming into this tournament. But he didn't really have much more. Like, you look at their save percentages are both pretty bad, but they're very similar. It's 849 for Bjarnason, 841 for Daigle. Similar goals against, roughly, although it's skewed a little bit because Daigle had to come in for relief a couple times. But goaltending was not a strength for Canada. Defense was not a strength. Goal scoring worked out well enough with that top line and Celebrini leading the charge that they still managed to get bronze. I guess that tells you how good their offense is, how good some of those top players are, that you can have worse goaltending and worse defense than you would dream of and still end up with bronze. That's pretty sweet. All right, and now I've got a question about the last team in our top four here, Slovakia, who played spoiler against Finland in the quarterfinals, which was tons of fun to watch. And they ultimately made it all the way to overtime in the bronze medal game before losing on a Macklin Celebrini one-timer. So Slovakia's been on just a wild run of great play internationally for the last few years and has produced more and more super high-end, like elite NHL prospects. And it looks like Dalibor Dvorsky is the latest of those. He's had a bit of an up and down year in the Allsvenskan, but he was a massive reason, maybe the reason, that Slovakia was competitive when the games got tough. So Matt, what are your thoughts on Dvorsky's tournament and maybe the possibility of his draft stock improving, which I think it probably does?
Well, he's definitely raised his stock for me. He was amazing for Slovakia. I think he's probably pushed them, like you said, to that almost going into the gold medal game, right? So yeah, it's or bronze, or almost won bronze. I mean, it's pretty amazing what Slovakia has done. They used to be that lower ranked, probably not that good since they had like guys. I'm trying to think of like guys like Marian Gaborik, and I'm trying to think, he's Slovakian, right? I always mix the Czechs and the Slovak.
Gaborik was Slovakia.
Yeah. Guys like that in these tournaments. And now they're kind of turning that page. Slavkovsky, Dvorsky, guys like that have started to become Nemitz. And I'm trying to think of all the players right now off the top of my head. They're all kind of pushing Slovakia into that. I wouldn't say elite yet, but a team that you're going, okay, we got to watch these guys now because they have some solid prospects, some solid players, and not just Dvorsky was good. I think there was a few other guys that really stood out as well. And I mean, Dvorsky led it, but that whole team was really good. Of course, you can't run a team with only one player. There was a few that actually helped him out too. So, but for me, yeah, Dvorsky definitely, his skill was on display throughout the tournament. I believe he finished with like 7 or 8 goals, something like that. I'm trying to look at the stats. But yeah, he was impressive all tournament long, and 8 goals. So yeah, lots of goal scoring. Is one off the lead in the tournament. So yeah, full value, and too bad they couldn't win a medal, but 4th is not bad in a tournament that is usually dominated. Finland's usually in a medal game and never made it. So
Yeah, clearing them out is pretty impressive. And with a bit of a top-heavy team, you did mention there were some other players. See if I can get the name right. Uri Pekarczyk.
That's the one I was trying.
Just kind of came out of nowhere. Well, nowhere to us. He's been playing in most of his games in the top Slovakian Pro League this year, which it's harder to get a bit of a gauge on. But he's big and he played very well for Slovakia. You can't really make it that far with just one player clicking. And it really helped Dvorsky out to have at least one other guy just really firing on all cylinders on that top line. Although Dvorsky was clearly the one in charge there. But Peter, what are your thoughts on Dvorsky's tournament? All those goals, dragging Slovakia into the fight. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, just absolute sheer dominance again. This is a player that, obviously Slovakia coming in, they were going to be an underdog. Didn't know what to expect because they don't have those names like you had in the previous past, like, Nemec, Soskowski, Mesar. But Dvorsky still remained, and he was going to be the one where they were going to rely on heavily for the offense. And man, he took control of every single game offensively with his shot, with his ability to intercept pucks. And the biggest knock that I saw or that I've read up on is that, sometimes he lets the play come to him instead of him going towards the play a bit. He was definitely going towards the play and he was making an impact. And I think that's the one thing that kind of had him outside the top 10 at certain points because of that willingness. The fact that he was showing that consistently at this tournament for Slovakia is a big reason for success for him. And, to be, in that top 10, 6 overall and scoring with 13 points, 1.86 point per game. That's really impressive. And, if there's a team looking for that dual type of style center winger kind of player that could score, that could set up plays. And even during that game against Canada, the accuracy that he has in his shot is just absolutely phenomenal. It almost proved to be a difference maker and he was extremely dangerous. And deep down, I'm part Slovak. I was kind of cheering for them as well. I just to go back and correct myself, he did not score against Canada. I thought he did. I'm pretty sure it was another game early on in the tournament that he did, but either way, the accuracy is just phenomenal. I was kind of hoping that Slovakia would kind of pull through for a medal because, it's one of those feel-good stories and they just fell just short, and it would have been great to see him with obviously getting to the top 4 is a huge accomplishment, but that bronze medal probably would have meant the world to him. So I was really impressed with this tournament. He definitely improved the stock and he's definitely going to be in my top 10 again.
Yeah, I think he as you mentioned, he kind of slid out of the top 10 a little bit. Not necessarily too far out, but just been kind of waiting to see it again from him. Like every time that the schedule is allowed and he's gone down and played in juniors in Sweden, he's dominated. So like, okay, we know he can do that. But then he'd come up to the pros and struggle a little bit, which, is justifiable. He's
just not normal.
He's just a kid.
I mean, it is normal. Sorry, not normal.
I got you. It's not normal.
Not normal. There we go. That's
right. But to see him in a junior context again, still, but against much stronger competition than in the J20 National in Sweden, and to see him take over games with his just driving to the net, just getting in dirty spots and ripping shots, that was pretty encouraging for sure. And I think he's really cementing himself in that late top 10 range, maybe just outside if, depending on how the cards fall on draft day. But I think he's definitely done himself some favors with some success here.
And to correct myself, it was his goal against Finland that I was thinking of as well. It was earlier on. Also, to go back and correct myself, Cole Eiserman didn't score in that gold medal game. It was a deflection by Kerry Terrance. But also,
Nice.
We talked about Pekarczyk as well. Adam Sedzo was really, really dynamic as well. He was like a big part of their Slovakia's offense as well. So obviously, those two players are probably going to be mid-round picks, but I thought they really did stand out as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I've just got a couple quick fire questions for you guys here. One that I just thought of looking at these guys. Who was the most impressive 2024 draft eligible player in your eyes at this tournament? Peter, I'll come to you. You can go with the top guys. I'm not going to shame you for picking Max Celebrini. You're allowed to do that. Peter, who impressed you most that's not even eligible this year?
You know what? I'm going to be a homer and just say Macklin because we like obviously
good.
Because at that age, even same with Cole Eiserman, I was about to say Cole Hudson. I should have just combined them together because they both have the same first name.
The Coles.
The Coles, Macklin, like there's so many to choose from. Like they are just absolutely dynamic, and it's great to see how it's going to be a battle for first overall next season because you have the goal scoring of Eiserman, you have that overall, play in Celebrini. So it's like, who do you take kind of thing? It was kind of like what Bedard and Michkov was heading into this season before it even started. You got the goal scorer, you got the overall offensive playmaker, dual threat kind of thing. So, a lot of great names from 2024 to be excited about. That is for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's always a really fun combo just to have like the all-around centerman that scores quite a bit at the top of the draft, and usually they go first because centermen are at a premium. But then you have them paired with like and just out of this world sniper on the wing. That's just a fun combo. I feel like we get that like every other year basically, but
yeah,
it's pretty fun. Matt, what are your thoughts? Who is the most impressive underager at this tournament? Not going to be drafted this year.
Yeah, like Peter said, it's tough. There's so many good ones. Like Celebrini led Canada in scoring. Eiserman 9 goals. Like that's insane. If going against players that you're drafted be draftable this year, and you're not, and they're dominating. So, we talked about Eiserman in the last episode of how impressive he's been, and he's just continued it. I believe he scored another couple goals since we talked about him. So. And then Celebrini scores the game winner in the bronze medal game. So, they're coming. He came in a big game as well. So, that, and then Cole Hudson too. I mean, that like he had a goal and 11 assists or something crazy.
Yeah, something crazy.
Yeah,
I think 11.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the assists are probably. I mean, there's a lot of guys he can pass to that that'll score. But yeah, he was impressive throughout. So all these guys, it's going to be fun. We said about the 2023 draft being fun to cover. Well, we just got another one coming up too. So lots of fun coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think someone that impressed me a ton as an underager in this year's tournament, I think I spoke about him just before the tournament started. It's Konsta Helenius on Finland. Aside from maybe Kasper Halttunen, but I think it's an argument. I think Helenius was the best forward for Finland. Obviously, they're a pretty disappointing team going out in the semis after, they always have high expectations for themselves, or going out in the quarterfinals there. Helenius had 6 points in 5 games, which isn't crazy. There were a handful of 2024 eligible players with more points than him, but I thought he drove play really well, and his playmaking, like this year, we've only seen him play in Liga as the youngest player is a 16-year-old in a pro league. So it was interesting to get a look at him against junior-aged players after a year of playing against grown men, and the way he protects the puck and the way he makes plays. His passing is excellent, and I like that a lot. He looks like a pretty likely top 10 pick next year at this point. Obviously, things change quite a bit between summers, but I was really impressed with Helenius. So one other quick fire here was, who was the most impressive player at this year's U18 tournament overall? Who would you pick as the most impressive player overall? Matt, I'll come to you first.
Holy, it's someone from Team USA. I'm gonna say that right now. It's hard to pick one of them. I really want to say, just because of how young he is Cole Eiserman, because being such a young guy and getting 9 goals in a tournament that's usually dominated by the guys that are going to be drafted this year. I mean, there's so many guys to choose from, but just like I say, just because of how young he was and how much he can look like he's just a lethal goal scorer already, and this is not even his draft year, was really impressive for me overall.
Yeah, absolutely. That fits. I mean, 9 goals is really good for any player, for an underager, not playing on the top line, not always playing on the top power play. Like, it's pretty impressive, even if the rest of the game for the tournament for him wasn't the best. But I mean, goals tend to be important sometimes. So I think you take it. Peter, for you, who was the most impressive player at this year's U18s?
The easy answer would be someone on the top line, like Matt said, but I'm going to save that for later on. And he went with the goal scorer. I'm going to go with the playmaker in Cole Hudson. We always talk about how great Lane is and how well he should, or his overall play, and how he shouldn't have been a second round pick. Cole is definitely going to be a first round selection. He has the size advantage. I think he was just very dynamic, very calm, very poised, confident with the puck on his stick, and, distributing the puck very well, and was very strong in transition. That's, don't know what else I can say about Cole, because he was just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always tons of guys you can pick for these. I'm going to go with an easy one. I'm going to go with Will Smith. It's like cheap because he led the entire tournament in scoring and is the center of the top line for the gold medal winning team. But truly, just an absolutely impressive week 2 weeks there from Will Smith. There's not, the higher you get in like the draft world, among prospects in your draft, the harder it is to actually move anywhere significant. So the fact that he's at least giving himself a shot to move up further, from maybe 5th overall to 4th overall, is very impressive. It shows that he's had to do a lot to get there. I know some people will like rag on his defensive game a bit, but there were some really solid back checks from him in this tournament. Some great stick lifts, really timed them well. It's not going to be the calling card of his game. That's going to be the dynamic offense and the shiftiness and the playmaking. But I think he's going to have a little more to show defensively than we were thinking for a long time there. All right, so we're going to take a quick break now to hear a word from the hockey writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
All right, with the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs wrapping up as we record, I believe the final game has started. Did it start right now? The Rangers Devils game 7.
It starts at
8 o'clock. Yeah. Starts in an hour. Just about to wrap up. Not wrapping up right now. I thought it'd be fun to have a quick chat.
We
about
will
some
know
of the
result.
Yeah,
that is true. You'll know the results by the time you see this. I thought it would be fun to have a chat about some of the best rookies in the playoffs. Whether or not their team is still in the playoffs isn't the most relevant thing, but I think most of them will be. So one of the most impressive rookies this year has been Wyatt Johnston. Nobody really expected him to be in the NHL this year. I certainly didn't. But he made the Dallas Stars early this fall, scored 24 goals, 41 points in 82 games as a teenager, which is wild. And he has 2 points in 6 playoff games. Nothing crazy, but good. And he's been better than those numbers suggest, especially with the increased role basically everyone on offense in Dallas is taken with Pavelski being out. Joe Pavelski getting hurt in that first game against Minnesota. And yeah, as a teenager, Johnston is averaging about 17 minutes a night if you don't include that double overtime game. So Matt, I'll come to you first here. What are your thoughts on Johnston's season and how he's been doing in the playoffs here? Dallas has moved on to round 2, so he's gonna get even more of a shot at showing he can be a difference maker.
It's funny because I just finished recording a playoff preview for that series, the Stars and the Kraken, and I mentioned Wyatt Johnston. He's a guy that he was in competition with Logan Stankoven. We're thinking, okay, who's going to make the roster? Well, Johnston made the roster over Stankoven. Now Stankoven's being crazy at the Kamloops Blazers again, but I mean, I don't know what he could have done if he made the team. He was impressive in training camp as well. But yeah, Johnston, I didn't anticipate him to make the team. I didn't anticipate him to score 20 goals, let alone, halfway to 30. Or close to halfway to 30. But yeah, 40 points in 82 games this young, and he probably won't win the Calder because a guy named Matty Beniers is around that too, but he'll be a finalist. I'm going to say next couple days, they're going to announce the finalists for the Calder. I think he may be one of them. So I think he's been amazing all season long, playing on a really strong team, and he's playing a lot. Like you said, in the playoffs, he's playing over 17 minutes, which is probably like second line minutes. And, in the absence of Pavelski, everyone had to step up, and he's one of those guys, and he scored his first playoff goal the other day as well. So yeah, he's been really good. And if Beniers wasn't in the league, he probably wasn't a rookie in this year. He probably would win the Calder.
Yeah, he'd definitely be up there for sure. He's got a real good shot at being a finalist. I would almost say that you look at the goals and the points, but I think maybe the most impressive stat is just that as a 19-year-old, he played all 82 games.
Yeah.
I know at the start of the year, Dallas was a bit of a top-heavy team, maybe like a 1.5 line offense. But they're looking better and better now. And part of that's due to him being a legitimate contributor in the middle six immediately, which is far more than I'm sure they expected this quickly, but I'm sure they're very happy. Peter, what are your thoughts on Wyatt Johnston's season and now his game in the playoffs?
Yeah, he's definitely been one of the top rookies this year. There's no doubt about that. And the transition to this pro level just seemed very seamless for him. It's there's always going to be a little bit of nerves for these players that just make the jump. And considering that, he missed out on a full OHL season, gets drafted, and then all of a sudden starts having the season that he has, dominating the OHL last year, getting the opportunity this season. I mean, it doesn't seem like he missed a step or missed a beat at all. And the fact that he continued that into the playoffs, and you mentioned about the absence of Joel Pavelski and getting those minutes, and even though the production isn't quite there, I don't think they're asking for him to be, they're looking to get some production from him. There's no doubt they would like to see that. But just his overall awareness, the instincts, the ability to be in position, and just his overall game itself says a lot about where he's already, his trajectory as, a future centerman for this team. He's going to be a big, impactful centerman. He's got a wicked shot. Obviously he's going to be more of that shooter mentality. Obviously he can distribute the puck very well, but if he's going to take that shot, he's going to wire it on net. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, for me, it's just the consistency, the ability to play a smart and well-rounded game as well right now. That's the most important thing for them to try and see that, and especially in a big moment like the playoffs. And he hasn't wavered one ounce or one bit. He's been very consistent about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the hallmarks of his game is timing, and I think that'll work out really well for him in the playoffs as well. He's really great at getting lost in coverage, and just appearing somewhere near the net when the puck pops out and just banging in a rebound. Those specifically are the goals that really can be the difference makers in the playoffs. But just his timing for passes, for his own shots, like the confidence and the calmness to wait an extra second for a new passing lane to open up that's going to lead to a better chance. To have that confidence in the NHL as a 19-year-old is just in the playoffs is insane. So he's been a ton of fun to watch, and get the feeling he's gonna be fun to watch for quite a while in Dallas. Hopefully we get to see Stankoven there too, though. Next up here, we've got Akira Schmid. Has been one of the best stories in the playoffs so far. Goaltender for the New Jersey Devils. He earned the starting goalie spot after Vitek Vanacek lost games 1 and 2 against the New York Rangers. So Schmid has earned 3 wins in 4 games with a .937 save percentage, which is absurd. And from all these interviews and stuff I've seen with him and with some of his teammates, it seems like he's just locked in all day for preparation to the game. Like he's just like a robot who like is not stressed or panicked at all, which is just a ton of fun. So Peter, I'll come to you first here. It has been confirmed he's going to be starting tonight in Game 7, Rangers Devils. We'll see how that goes. You'll all know by the time you're listening here. But Peter, what are your thoughts on this run from Schmid? And do you think he has what it takes to go on a bit of a run? Do you think maybe they'll win this game?
I sure hope so, because I thought they could have done it last one in Game 6 because I had Devils in 6. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out that way sometimes. But yeah, I mean, obviously, when they're down 2-0, you get a sense that, okay, what are we going to do? We're kind of in trouble here. We're going to put one of our backup goaltenders in to try and, stop the bleeding, try and give us some momentum. And lo and behold, Schmid has done that consistently. I mean, 3-1, you mentioned the number 937 save percentage is just absolutely phenomenal. He's been, like you said, with his interviews, he's been very robotic, but even on the ice, he's very dialed in. It seems like he's got that, laser tracking the puck, like kind of superpower thing, whatever. I don't even know what you want to call it, but he's been finding the puck and tracking the puck very well, and he's given the Devils a fight every single chance, and that's what you need. And what one thing this playoffs has taught us is, expect the unexpected. Anything can happen, and we're seeing that right now with a backup goaltender coming in and playing and shutting things down. He's keeping them in the fight every single time, and obviously, you look at your top players like your Hughes, your Brack, your Heishiers, and everybody to step up. And when your starter isn't quite doing that, you need someone to fall back on. And luckily, he's been answering the call for them, and that's been pretty big for them. Whether they can continue this, I hope it just lasts for this one because I have the Devils as my pick. Whether it could go on a deep run, who knows? Momentum changes and shifts every single time. Maybe they lay it all on the line in Game 7 and maybe they bow out in the second round, or maybe this is the end for them. Who knows? But whatever it is, he's definitely keeping them in there and giving some life. That is for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether or not it, you got it right there. Whether or not it goes long term, this was a win. This was a win overall for the team and for the prospect. Matt, I'll come to you now. What are your thoughts on Schmid's run here? Do you think he has what it takes to take the Devils on a bit of a run? Or, so basically, do you think he's more Hamburglar or like Jordan Bennington going to
Cam
the
Ward.
Stanley Cup? Cam
Going
Ward.
back to Cam Ward.
In Dryden.
Yeah. Looking at what he's done, I mean, it was a gamble. It was a gamble to put a guy like this in. I mean, a rookie going into you're down 2-0. I guess they thought, okay, nothing to lose. Schmid's been good all season when he's come in and played. Arguably, he's the third string goalie. If you look at it, like Blackwood has played the backup role most of that season, while Schmid kind of came in at times. But I think he's pretty much solidified himself as a backup, at least. I don't know what they'll do in the offseason with Blackwood at all, but I think Schmid has actually put it forth that he could be a backup for sure. You never know. I mean, when Cam Ward came in, Brian Boucher was the starter, and it ended up being Cam Ward obviously won the cup and all that, and then Boucher was out the door. So, I mean, you don't know if Schmid goes on a crazy run and they leads him to a cup. Vanacek may not even be in New Jersey next season. So you never know. But yeah, Schmid's been amazing. Like you said, he's so calm. He's not playing as a rookie. You wouldn't know he's a rookie in there. We'll see what happens in Game 7. It's a lot of pressure to put on a guy. But you put in Vanacek and he puts on a Game 1 performance again, they'll be like, why didn't you just keep Schmid in? So I mean, it's that damage you do, damage you don't type thing. It's like you're gonna be critiqued either way if you don't get out of this series and say, why didn't you put Vanacek in? He's a veteran, knows Game 7s. Yeah, I mean, I think you go with the guy that basically brought you to this point, and that's Schmid, because otherwise I think they'd be out I want to say they'd be out in 4 because Banachek didn't look good at all.
Mhm.
I don't know if he would have been able to bounce back. So I think he does have the chops to go on a long run. Like I said, when you guys are listening to this, the Devils may be out, and I'm just talking like whatever. So I'll go with Schmid making it through Game 7. We'll see if I'm right.
Nice. Yeah. For prediction's sake, I'll say if New Jersey wins this on the back of a great goaltending performance, then I think they've got a conference final run in them. But overall, I think Game 7, the pressure on all of the Devils, who are kind of there for the first time, at least with this group, in Madison Square, or no, not in Madison Square Garden, actually. I didn't think about that. The Devils are the home team.
Yeah.
I do think Shesterkin has shown at times through this series why he won the Vezina last year and why he's at least in the conversation as the best goalie in the world, maybe the best goalie in the world. I think he's shown that enough in short pieces here and there that I think the Rangers will probably win. Just a prediction to hopefully look cool tomorrow when you guys are listening, whenever this comes out. Anyway, okay. Last question here about some prospects in the playoffs. I want to talk about Matthew Knies, who just narrowly missed out on winning the NCAA championship a few weeks ago in Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay with the University of Minnesota before getting the call up to Toronto. Played the last few regular season games, sat Game 1 of the playoffs, got into the lineup after Michael Bunting's idiotic hit, and has not looked back, winning, I think, 3 games in Amalie Arena after losing his NCAA season there. He extended Toronto's there too, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, he was a huge part of Toronto's first playoff series win since 2004. He was on the ice for all 3 of Toronto's overtime winners in the series. So, Peter, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on Matt Knies in the NHL and his rise up Toronto's depth chart in like a week, going from a healthy scratch to in the top 6 firmly?
Yeah, I know, like in his first game that he played, or they were like when they were going to Tampa, they asked him, what are your thoughts about coming back to this arena? He didn't like it because, he lost the championship.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I think he may be starting to like Amalie Arena because he was on for, 3 critical games in overtime and played a factor in every single goal. Although I think maybe you look at the game 3 goal where it was the Riley shot. He got great body positioning to take away Vasilevsky's vision. Great awareness to crash the net and use that big frame to his side, to his advantage. Second one kind of didn't really make of an impact because that was at the point it was tipped in by Kerfoot and he was, further in the background, but he was open if anything did happen. And then the third one, this was just absolutely what we notice every single time with Matthew Knies in his game. The ability to win board battles, getting positioning, getting in on the forecheck, and using the mix of his added speed, his hands, and everything else, it combined into one, because that goal doesn't happen if he doesn't, get that advantage. I believe it was Kucherov where he was in on, battling for positioning, getting the puck, and chipping that puck out into the open so that John Tavares could take it and get the puck on net and eventually score the game-winning goal. And, like you said, it's just absolutely phenomenal what he's been able to do rising up the depth charts. Keith has the utmost faith in him. He didn't want to take him out in Game 5 because he's been so critical and so important, and he's gotten better every single game. Now, you're going to see turnovers here and there, the mistakes, out of positionings. That's still expected because this is a player that's just vaulted into a playoff spot, but he's still playing relatively well despite making minimal mistakes, maybe 1-2 a game, and then he shrugs it off and he's coming back with another dominant shift. This is what they wanted. This is what they needed. They needed this type of player to be a factor in their top 6, and now he's possibly going to be on the top line based on what Ryan Rush has said ahead of Game 1 against the Panthers. He's been everything that they needed. There was a little bit of a question mark that expectations should be tampered with him. Well, guess what? He's fitting in right in, and his expectations are just going to, he's meeting them. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty wild that it just took 3 games for him to him to establish himself so firmly that the Leafs didn't want to bring Bunting back into the lineup for game 5 there. They were like, I think we're okay. Probably wasn't the right call considering how good Bunting looked in game 6, but still, like, on Knies' part, it was very impressive. Matt, what's your thought on another Matt Knies? I know you love your Matts. On his play in the NHL so far. He's only had, almost at 10 games, 8 or 9 NHL games, something like that now. What are your thoughts on his rise so soon, so quick?
It's not surprising. He's a Matthew, so
yeah, of course.
He's been amazing. And I've mentioned it on Maple Leafs Lounge, and anytime we've mentioned this guy, he's just exceeded any expectations everyone kind of had for him when he came. I don't think anyone had really any expectations for him to come into the lineup. I don't think anyone expected him to be in any of the playoff lineups at all. And now he's one of the better, probably the best rookie in the playoffs. I mean, Wyatt Johnston, we've talked about, but Knies has been just, to go from a guy that, wasn't supposed sitting in the press box to a top 6 role, and Peter said top line potentially for game 1 in the second round of the NHL playoffs. Again, if anyone said that a year ago, oh yeah, Matthew Knies will be in the second round and be on the ice for whatever, and I'd be like, no, that's not happening. But yeah, he's just, like I said, he shouldn't have been drafted in the second round. He should have been drafted in the first, and he's showing it. And now there's possibly questions about Michael Bunting's future now, which I don't think anyone thought would be because of Matthew Knies' rise. And even when Bunting did come back in the lineup, guess who didn't come out of it? Knies. I mean, I don't think they even thought about it. They took out Aston Reese. They took out Sam Lafferty ahead of him. So there's your answer right there. But yeah, he, like you said, Peter, he wasn't really a big part of that goal that Kerfoot scored. But if you just see the picture that he's in, it looks like he scored the goal. So he's the most prominent one in that image on the hockeywriters.com, and you'll see it many times. But yeah, Knies just impressive, and I think he's going to score in this series against the Panthers. Just putting it out there.
Nice. Yeah, it's hard not to be impressed watching him. As you said, like top 6, possibly top line. That's wild. But to be honest, with the firepower at the top of Toronto's lineup, anywhere in the top 6 is still just like really impressive. But as you mentioned, Peter, that was just like exactly what you could dream of before you got him in the NHL, and exactly what you hope to see him do for years and years to come. Winning that battle, getting the puck to Tavares for that game winner, for the series winner, just playing this kid in overtime in his 4th ever playoff game, 5th ever playoff game. Like, that's wild that they trust him that much, but they were so justified to do so.
Yeah.
And then, Matt, as you were saying, it's wild that he was in the second round. I feel like it might be for a few years here where the 2020, 2021 drafts, we're going to look back at a handful of picks and be like, what were they thinking? And then we're going to remember that. Then we're going to remember that like every interview was over Zoom, and like
COVID,
arenas were empty, people didn't play, and we'll be like, okay, yeah, that's why everything was just pure chaos for an entire like 30 months. Who knows how long you want to pick? 36 months, I don't know. But
that
yeah,
was a lifetime.
Yeah, it felt like a lifetime. It's like, yeah, a lifetime ago. Anyway, Matt Knies has been absolutely stellar, and I'm excited to watch him against Florida here. He gets to go against both Florida teams. I've got a couple quick fire questions here, and they are very, very similar, but different in one very important way. So I'm going to read them back to back. Matt, I'll come to you first. So the first question is, who do you think will win the Calder Trophy this year? And then the second question is, who do you think should win the Calder Trophy this year? It can be the same. It might be the same. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts?
Who will?
Who will, and then who should?
Matt Beniers. Again, another Matthew. What do you know? I think he'll win the Calder. He's looked again. I mean, the playoffs don't matter, obviously, but he's looked good in the playoffs. And he led, in scoring and all that as well. I'm going to say Beniers should win it too. I mean, he was so consistent throughout the year, played on the top line in Seattle all year, didn't really waver from that. So I'm saying Beniers for both categories.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, I understand that completely. Peter, what are your thoughts? Who will win the Calder Trophy this year, and who do you think should win it?
Wish there was a Calder Trophy for the playoffs because Matthew Knies is first overall with 3 assists, tied for Nick Perbix.
Nice.
I'm just joking. I do think Matthew. I was going to say Matthew Knies. Matty Beniers is the winner, and he should win it. I mean, almost 60 points on a Seattle Kraken team that had a dominant season where they made the playoffs, where still many didn't even have high expectations for them. And we got a great glimpse of what he was able to bring to this team last season with his, little, not necessarily tryout, but the minimal games that he played in. Looked very good there. And, again, just under 60 points a season, very impressive. I really do think that he should be the winner regardless.
All right, that's fair. You guys, obviously, it feels like it's been his trophy to lose since like November.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like it's been a guarantee because, publicity and storylines are a huge part of that trophy, especially, it feels like. And the publicity of being the first like possible star player on a brand new team, taking them to the playoffs for the first time, that's all huge, and I think it's his. And I won't complain when he wins it. However, I think Stuart Skinner should win. I think Stuart Skinner should win because he had 29 wins. The Oilers started the year really hoping Jack Campbell would be an NHL goaltender, at least a starting goalie, and he was not. And by the time they switched over to Stuart Skinner, their year started to turn around. And you look at in the new year, they were one of the very best teams in the NHL. From the trade deadline to the end of the year, they were, I think, the second best team in the NHL. They were just a dominant team, and getting good goaltending was a huge part of that. 50 games played. Well, I'll go 48 starts, and Skinner had a 29-14-5 record, a 914 save percentage. The Oilers haven't had that good of goaltending for like a whole season since maybe like Cam Talbot in, when was that, 2017 or something? 2016, 17. I think is a huge year. Obviously, goalies are always in tough to win this award. And so you always have like a freebie finalist that's a goalie. It always feels like they just like throw a goalie in. Like last year, it was Jeremy Swayman. Might have deserved it, at least deserved a little more votes than he got, in my opinion. But you're a goalie. You don't win that award. That's not for you. Put that back. That's not for you. But I think Stuart Skinner should get a little more attention. I think he might be a finalist just because he's a goaltender and they need to put someone in. But I think he deserves it.
What's funny about Skinner, there was a time I didn't think he was a rookie. I thought, he's not a rookie anymore.
Yeah. Well, he just had 12 games last year.
Yeah, he just felt like he played more last year for some reason. But
yeah, I mean, you heard about him a lot because of Mike Smith. But anyway, yeah, I think he was very impressive this year. Almost 30 wins. It didn't play a full starter slate of games. I liked his year a lot, and he's been really good in the playoffs. Obviously, that doesn't count towards it, as you guys mentioned. We are going to wrap up our show as we always do, each of us going over our prospect of the week. So Matt, I'm going to come to you first here. Who's your prospect of the week this week? As playoffs wrap up in most leagues and we have the tournament, whatever.
Well, and again, this may be one of the last times I'm going to highlight a Canucks prospect because he's still in the playoffs for at least one more game. Arshdeep Bains, who, the Abbotsford Canucks are now on the brink of elimination. They lost their first 2 games in Calgary, and now they're coming back home on, as we record this, Wednesday, to hopefully keep it going because they got 3 games at home. But Bains scored 2 shorthanded goals on the same penalty, and he scored the first one, went off. Then on this next shift, he scored again, and the power play wasn't over. and 1 goal was on a 2-on-1, really good. Didn't pass it, dragged it to the middle, and just snapped it on glove side of Dustin Wolf, who's probably the best goalie outside the NHL right now. And then on this next shift, good forecheck by, I can't remember who had the forecheck. Sorry, whoever that was. And then he grabbed the puck off the turnover, and then went in and made a quick deke on Wolf and beat him again. Unfortunately, the Canucks dwindled away a lead. They were up 3-1 going into the third, and they allowed a couple goals and tied the game. And then Matthew Phillips won it in overtime. Another Matthew, but we got Matthews all over the place here. But yeah, Arshdeep Bains was impressive in that game, and he's looking like he could be an NHL type Tyler Mott. I've said this before, a type player where great on the penalty kill, good speed, great forechecker, just all around buzzsaw, and scores like maybe 10, 15 goals in his prime, and just hovers around that most of his career. But it's just that solid utility player that you want on a team to possibly win a cup or whatever. So Arshdeep Bains is my prospect of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bains has had about the perfect season you could imagine for him. After dominating the WHL last year as one of the older players in the league, at least on the older end. It was like, what is he going to show in professional hockey? Is he going to be able to get there? Is he going to be potentially an NHL player? And he had a really solid year overall. Probably didn't hurt that the development staff in the Abbotsford Canucks is just crazy. Like Henrik and Daniel Sedin spend tons of time on the ice with those kids. So that's got to help, especially for someone that grew up in the lower mainland like Bains. But yeah, he just had a wicked year. And if he can build on it a little bit more next year, I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a game or two in relief for the Canucks, for the Vancouver Canucks. If they have some injuries in the bottom 6, maybe get a game here or there. I think he's pretty close to ready there. I'll give mine, and I'll do it real quick because we've had plenty of time to gush about him. But I just want to talk about Macklin Celebrini. Led Canada in scoring, 5th in the U18 tournament in scoring, despite not having a ton of offensive contributors around him on the team. Obviously, that top line with Wood and Ritchie, they all produced. But I do think a lot of that was due to Celebrini being just the best player on Canada, even though he's a year away from being drafted. I'm very excited to see what he can do in the NCAA next year. Again, as an early commit, he's going to be 17 his entire freshman season. So it'll be curious to see how he does on the ice, but I think he'll handle himself pretty well. But just watching him uncork some bombs with his one-timer was just like wild to see. I did not expect that from him, to be honest. I've seen most of his goals in the USHL this year. Wasn't prepared for him to just like try to punch through the net. He had a few goals on those, and including the bronze medal. The bronze goal, it doesn't have quite the ring as the golden goal. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but the bronze goal he scored with just a massive one-timer. So I'm very excited about Celebrini. We're going to have a lot of fun watching him and talking about him for another year. Peter, who's your prospect of the week this week?
Yeah, similar to Celebrini, we gushed about him too much. It's Will Smith for me. 2.86 points per game at the tournament, one shy of a 3-point per game average. And, you know, we talk about like his high-end skill set, the hands, the speed, his ability to make plays at such a quick pace. He's just so dynamic at what he does, and he's vaulted himself into a top 5 conversation. But before I end it off, because we've already talked about his play, I'm just going to name out the accolades that he just won at this tournament alone. All-star team, best forward, obviously the gold medal, most goals, most points, most valuable player, and top 3 player on the team.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
no more?
You just got to tip your hat to him. Like, that's just absolutely impressive about how he was able to take charge every single time, and even in key moments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He just absurd tournament for him. I will say, I'll add one thing here. The best news in the hockey world for prospects is that the Calgary Flames fired Daryl Sutter. So their young players will actually have a chance of playing in the NHL someday. They'll get ice time. Probably Matthew Phillips included. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
he should be in the NHL, but
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he got a call up earlier to sit up in the press box in the Saddle Dome. But
yeah.
And
I
Matthew
think they're all good
Coronado
news.
will have a better chance next year too.
And maybe the coach may
For sure.
actually remember their stat line and their play on the ice. Who knows?
Yeah, remember their number. My goodness. Yeah, when tough love just makes you look like a jerk and out of touch, like maybe it's time to move on. So that's
Yeah.
probably good news for those young guys. All right, well, that about does it for us this week. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Prospect Corner. Make sure you subscribe to the Hockey Writers YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss any of the rest of our episodes. Also, make sure you check out our site, thehockeywriters.com, for tons of draft coverage in the coming months, as well as plenty of previews of the playoffs, plenty of deep dives about all these teams that are left in the playoffs and maybe teams that aren't left. You can check out what your team might be doing in the offseason, because that's all there is left to look at.
Yeah.
I can say that as a writer for the Red Wings team. It's not fun to watch the playoffs and just dream of what could be.
Especially
anyway,
this year. Holy.
yeah.
I was
Yeah,
about
it's
to
been a
just
wild
say,
year.
insert the Squidward meme of Patrick and SpongeBob looking out and they're all happy and you're just inside down.
Yeah. I mean, that's fully me watching the Kraken and the Panthers as these wild card teams. Oh man. All right, I gotta look at the Kraken more wild cards. Anyway, yeah, make sure you check out hockeywriters.com for that stuff. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Matt. A great show as always, boys. And thank you all for watching this week's edition of Prospect Corner. We'll see you next time.